Many of us old school Rust players will remember a time not that long ago when we used to be able to just run up and down the roads and we would happen across a mini helicopter that we could take and use as our own. But then at some point in time, Facepunch decided that they were going to take away that functionality of having them randomly spawn alongside the road, and then made it so that the only place we could get it is if we purchased one from Airwolf at the bandit camp. Then there was a plugin out there called MyMini that allowed us to use the command MyMini in chat, and we could spawn our very own personal minicopter. But did you also know that that same plugin has evolved much further than just the minicopter by itself? We now have the capability of spawning in an attack helicopter or a scrap transport heli. So if your favorite Rust server or the server that you're operating for your community doesn't have this functionality and you want it, the plugin that you want is called SpawnHeli. It's available from umod.org, link in the video description down below. I'm going to go over how the plugin works for the players, and then I'm going to go over how it works for admins if you're deciding to add this to your server. Hey everybody, welcome back to Rust Admin Academy, where I'm teaching you everything that you need to know about owning and operating a successful Rust server. On this channel, I do plugin reviews and tutorials, plus I want to give you all of those little tips and tricks that are going to help you be more successful. So if you're brand new to the channel, consider subscribing so that you stay up to date on everything that we're working on, and of course you'll get notified as soon as I upload a new video. If you want to help support what I'm doing at Rust Admin Academy, head on over to SRTBULL.com, click on join in the top right hand corner, and become a premium member today. Alright, so first things first, let's go over how this is going to work for the players on your servers. So as the admin or the owner of your Rust server, you have full control over which of the functionalities they have access to. I'm going to go over permissions in a couple of minutes, but first I want to show you how it actually works for the players. If the player has the permission granted to them, or they're a member of a group that has the permission granted to it, they can use the command /mymini in chat. And up spawns a minicopter, obviously. And server owners have the control to decide whether the minicopter is going to spawn with fuel, whether it can do instant takeoff. There's a plethora of different features that we can control using the configuration file for SpawnHeli. We're going to get into that a little bit later. So let's say you've left your minicopter somewhere, you don't know exactly where it is and you can't find it. Providing that you're allowed to use this command, meaning the owner of the server has given you the permission to do this, you can use the fmini command, which looks exactly like this. So it stands for fetch mini. So if we run that command, it should bring the helicopter right to us from wherever it happened to have been. And you of course can control the maximum and minimum distance the player has to be away from their minicopter in order to be able to utilize that command. Plus, you need to give them the permission. And the other notable command is the no mini. So if we're done with this minicopter, we can do /no mini in chat, and it destroys it just like that. And depending on the cooldown settings determined by the server owner, you can use the MyMini command again to get that same minicopter back. Remember to take your fuel out or you could lose it. So that exact same functionality works for the attack helicopter as well as for the scrap transport helicopter. We can do /myattack in chat, brings up our attack helicopter, do /no attack in chat, makes it go away. And the command to spawn in the scrap transport heli is /myheli. And then of course, no heli when you're done with it. And the fetch command works the exact same way for the attack helicopter as well as for the scrap transport helicopter. So if you're playing on a server right now that doesn't have this functionality, go to that server's Discord and mention to the admin or the moderation team that you want this plugin added to the server. Most server owners are incredibly receptive to those types of suggestions. I'm not saying that they will guaranteed put that on for you. And even if they do, they'll probably only give you access to the minicopter, probably not the attack helicopter. I don't know. It depends on what kind of community you're playing with. So if you're a player and you want this functionality on the server that you're playing on, now you know what it's called, and now you know what you need to suggest to the server owner. Again, no guarantees that they're going to give you full functionality of this plugin, but just know that it is capable of doing these things. Now for the server owner, the plugin is obviously incredibly easy to install. You just simply download it from the Umod website and you can drag and drop it into your Oxide /plugins folder. If you have plugin watchers turned on, it's automatically going to compile and generate the configuration file. If you don't have plugin watchers turned on, you're going to have to do an o.reload SpawnHeli in order for it to actually compile and generate the configuration file. Speaking of the configuration file, let's go over some of the details that you're going to find in that file. I'm not going to cover every detail that's in here because there are a lot of them. But this is where you have full control over how this plugin is going to function in your server, and more importantly, what features the players are going to get that have permissions to use this plugin. Do you want to limit the players to one helicopter at a time, true or false? Do you want the plugin to try to despawn a current helicopter before trying to spawn in a new one for a player? What are the different commands that you want to be able to use on your server? You can customize this to whatever you want it to be. We've got an auto mount functionality, which is also protected by permissions. So just turning on the functionality in the configuration file doesn't do the trick. You also have to grant the permission to the individual group or the individual player that you want to automatically mount onto the helicopter as soon as they spawn one in. We can control the spawn health. So how much HP is one of these helicopters going to have if a player spawns one in? And then we've got spawn cooldowns, which can also be controlled by tiers. And yes, of course, if you need more than the 3 tiers that are generated by default, you can add them into the configuration file, put in your own custom cooldown times, bada boom, bada bing, you're good to go. Just remember to change the permission suffix so that you can tell which one it is that you're looking for when you're actually looking at permissions. And we've got the same functionality for the fetch options as well. So if you don't want your players to be able to, fetch every 10 seconds, then make sure you deal with this permissions section properly, and they won't be able to do that. They'll have to wait X amount of time before they can actually do a /F mini again. And all of that same functionality that we just went over for the Minicopter, you can do the same thing for the attack helicopter as well as with the scrap transport heli. I have them all minimized right here, but all you got to do is click on that arrow and it shows you the exact same functionality and configurability for each one of the different types of helicopters. Once you're done making all your changes and you're happy with it, of course, you're going to want to save this configuration file and do an o.reload SpawnHeli in your console in order for those changes to take effect. Once you're done with all of that, then of course, the next most important step that you need to take care of is dealing with the permissions. And there's going to be quite a few of them. So I'm going to be using admin menus so that I can graphically show you all of the different permissions. Let's go into my admin group. Let's do SpawnHeli. And these are all of the permissions that are available by default right out of the gate, which there's a lot of them. I understand that. And if you went through and added any custom tiers to your cooldowns or your fetch times, then of course this list of permissions would be even longer. So of course you just want to go through these permissions and make sure that you're granting the right permissions to the right group of players so that you're not accidentally giving a functionality that you don't want to give away to everybody else. So for example, let's have a look here. So I've got SpawnHeli scrap transport with unlimited fuel. This is only available to my admin group, to which I'm the only member of. If we go back and have a look at the default group, you can see that the permissions granted to the default group are far less than what is granted to the admin group. And on this particular server, I've got different levels of VIP, which of course give them different functionalities, faster cooldown times, and probably shorter fetch times as well. Another really important permission on this list that you might have noticed is this one right here, the SpawnHeli all.no decay. So decaying helicopters is, we could call it a big problem in Rust because people are spending a lot of scrap. If they're not using this plugin, they're spending a lot of scrap in order to get that mini. And it's a little bit complicated and definitely takes a lot of resources in order to protect that mini from decay. And even at that, you're not protecting it completely. You're only slowing down its decay rate. So we can grant this permission to the default group, and then anybody that uses the command my_mini, that mini will no longer decay. It can still obviously get damaged through normal wear and tear, but it's not going to decay just by sitting there. So that's just one of the cool features that the developer of this plugin has thought of and put in there and protected it by permission. You don't have to use it, but that functionality is there if you want it. So let me know what you guys think of SpawnHeli. I don't know that everybody knows that the functionality is there, that you can use the attack helicopter as well as the scrap transport helicopter that many of us have been used to using /my_mini for literally years. So this isn't a new plugin by any stretch of the imagination, but I was going through my library trying to figure out plugins that needed to be recovered, and this was definitely one of them. Back when I did my first video on my_mini, the functionality was only there for the Minicopter. In fact, the attack helicopter didn't even exist yet, and I'm not even really sure that the scrap transport heli existed at that point in time. Because plugins like this one are so incredibly protected by permissions, it's important that you all know how you should be dealing with your permissions. I've done a very detailed video on how I deal with permissions and how I suggest you do it. So check out the video on the left-hand side of your screen right now and watch that video all the way to the end so that you can see how easy it is to be dealing with permissions. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you again next week.